at Leo ascendant, Leo sun, or Leo moon for 2025 and 2026 as well, actually, because the year is kind of like overlapping with all the planetary changes that are happening right now on the sky. To start with, we've got Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, Saturn, all changing signs. And of course, we've got Mars retrograde that is opposing Pluto, and that is going to be affecting you the most on one hand. So I would like to break this down for you. I hope you can show your gratitude by commenting on it, liking the video, subscribing to the channel. Excuse me. And then if you would like to have a personal reading with me, I've got a great news. Christmas is coming up. Christmas is about giving. So I decided to give you 50% discount on all my courses, webinars, as well as personal readings. So if any of those are in interest to you, then you might want to go on my website, AstroViktor.com, and you want to check them out. I've got courses, hundreds of courses actually available, as well as webinars on all levels. So you can really pick cherry. And I'm even going to be launching a foundational course as well. So if you want to be working your way up to become an astrologer, then the foundational course should be a very good deal for you. So let's get started. Dear Leo, as I said, one of the major factors for you for this year is Mars retrograde in your first house as well as in your 12th house. And it's being opposed by Pluto in your 7th house. So let's break that down a little bit for you. First of all, this Mars retrograde is about to reset, to recharge, to think through your confidence level, to think through your kind of like body strength as well. It is asking you to reassess whether you come across to the world as courageous, brave, a risk taker, or do you have the tendency to kind of get stuck, for example, with all the past issues that you have experienced. Now, there are two parts to this retrograde motion. We've got Mars going retrograde in the sign of Leo, but it's going to be shifting back into the sign of Cancer, which is basically your 12th house. And while it is in the sign of Leo, you're going to have to work through whether you are on the path that you need to be on, whether you are achieving your goals, and whether you are approaching all these with the right manner. This is about awakening your ambitions, but it needs to be done kind of like authentically. The reason why authenticity is really important because the first house represents you as a core element. Now we've got the second part, yes, where maybe some of your goals and fears and so forth needs to be kind of like addressed. Maybe you need a bit of a solitude, for example, to reflect on some of the past issues, or maybe you need to be working through what is the root of my confidence issue. And sometimes you just need to kind of walk away from situations to recharge your batteries, and then we can go after with full flank. So this comes with two parts, a little bit of an introspection and a little bit of working on why I am blocked to be able to take, for example, new challenges into your life. It's going to be so important that you work on your body as well as on the inner self, and then trying to harmonize those. Because this is really much for me about the reinvention of the self. It is a little bit of a spring clean. Now, Pluto is in the picture as well, right? So it's highly possible that, for example, there are some type of violence going on, for example, with certain type of people in your life. And that's what you're going to have to be doing. Also, while Mars is retrograde in your first house, it's about let's rebuild your persona. Let's kind of like shift things up a little bit. Often Mars forces you to do something. Often you are challenged by Plutonian people to approach life in a different way. Often For example, imagine that, again, Pluto is opposing your Mars. You are forced to make decisions about how you treat your body. So even it could indicate some physical kind of like disturbance to your physical plane as well. This is because Mars is retrograde and then it's connected to the 12th house. Some type of inner wounds needs to be worked through as well. So a lot of deep cleansing. Now, Mars either destroys or builds you up. So Mars is kind of like the knife. It cuts something out of your body. So some of you might be actually experiencing surgeries, but maybe you just need to be able to cut out a toxic relationship out of your life, or maybe you need to be dealing with certain type of legal matters as well. Maybe you just need to be cutting down, for example, of your weight, because that is something that is holding you back from moving forward. Watch out in the relationship department because it's very possible to be impatient, for example, or we might just want to be standing up for our rights. And then we kind of project our insecurities onto others as well. Maybe you realize that I am tired and sick of people pleasing. And therefore, you know what? You just tell them to walk out if they cannot take the authentic self of yourself. So it's a little bit of being brave enough to be an unapologetic version of yourself. Often Mars retrograde is kind of like, the boiling volcano, and then it's not erupting yet. It's not erupting yet. But once Mars goes direct, and then it goes back into your first house, it could be a big boom. So that's the reason why it looks like you're going to have to be dealing with certain type of toxicity as well as anger management issues as well. But also get rid of some of the waste in your body as well. This is telling you to be a little bit more on the selfish side as well. And then how can you manage all that built up anger? It looks like that built up anger is quite karmic, actually. It might be originated from somewhere else because Mars is going to be spending the majority of its retrograde period in the sign of Cancer. So it's going to be back in the sign of Cancer January 7th until February 24th. And then Mars will be just shifting into the sign of Leo back in sometimes in March. So be healthy, be fit, and deal with those angers. Now, as I mentioned, there is Pluto also in the picture. So Pluto is hitting your relationship departments. So on one hand, maybe, as mentioned before, you projecting your anger onto others, or you feel like you are getting controlled by others, or you feel like that you have to be pleasing others, and then you kind of get tired of it. But also it could bring a major change in your relationships. So again, you might be getting rid of family members, you might be getting rid of friends, or actually you are going to get divorced. It's all about how we can take the relationship to the next level. Maybe it's something that we have to work through in the intimacy departments. Maybe you notice that the way how I connected to others is not appropriate anymore. Maybe it's all about with that Mars retrograde to kind of like looking at your own relationship patterns. And again, when I'm talking about relationship patterns, it's not necessarily only about romantic connections, connections to others. Because are we repeating somehow the same stuff all over again? And this is the reason why you need a bit of an operation here. Also, Pluto wants to empower you. So it wants to empower you to be in a relationship, for example, but maybe there are some deep rooted fears there that you need to be able to work through if you are single. If you are in a relationship, there is no perfect relationship. So we still need to be making changes and maybe how we deal with certain type of intimacy issues or how we deal with conflicts in our life. I would also say that the other topic that could be popping up for you here is that you are actually meeting someone who is going to be changing your life either for the better or for the worse. So Pluto is exciting on one hand. It's the planet of destroyer also, but what Pluto does, it rebuilds you. And that's one thing that I truly love about Pluto. And yes, often people don't appreciate the fact that Pluto is all about a reminder that something is outdated in our life. So seventh house is all forms of connections. It Pluto represents a transformation, a very deep transformation there. And Pluto will be there for 2 decades. But Pluto is also connected to Uranus. So this could indicate that something happens out of the blue in your existing connections and relationships. So it's an unexpected event, and we're going to have to be able to take a decision about it quite quickly. Now, Uranus is in the sign of Gemini, and Gemini is in your 11th house. So maybe some of you will figure out that I got cheated on, for example. Some of you realize is that I need more social interaction. I would like to have more friends. I would like actually build a better future. And you might not be able to see that your partner is kind of like on the same wavelength with you. Pluto in the seventh house asks you to also look at how you balance things out, kind of like, power issues. So, do I feel powerful next to other people, or do they take the power away from me? It can feel like that it is only you who is putting the work into something. So that's the Plutonian part, and that's, of course, the Mars opposition. Now, the other big shift that is happening for us is Jupiter. Jupiter is moving into the sign of Cancer, sometimes in the middle of the year. And the reason why it's going to be very important for you is because Mars is already kind of like paving the path there with that retrogression. And then once Mars is kind of like ready to leave, Jupiter joins. And then if we haven't dealt with some of the pains, the grief, the sorrow, the past, then what Jupiter will be doing here is going to be magnifying for you. And therefore, here, Jupiter can indicate that we kind of like feel depressed, for example. And definitely we do not want that, right? So let's kind of like listen to that Mars and then making sure that we are not going to be falling into that trap. But I made a course about 12th house because 12th house is really kind of like, in my opinion, misunderstood, and it can feel like that, this is the most challenging houses ever. And on one hand, yes, this is not an easy house to deal with, but surely it also brings you some positivity. So, for example, Jupiter here could really talk to you about an increased sensitivity. You might be able to get in touch with your inner guides, for example. The 12th house is a little bit like a cosmic womb. We have got this desire to go back to something that was so beautiful before. So Jupiter can also help you with kind of like finding your own path, often forgotten with Jupiter being in the 12th house or with the 12th house itself, that is a vocational house as well, though, because we are talking about the fourth quadrant, and the fourth quadrant starts with the 10th house. So we might be so passionate about something that we're going to start working on that. And I think that's also great, right? So let's look at this Mars and Jupiter kind of combo in the 12th house. So intuition, heightened intuition. You can feel protected by angels, but also you might feel like that you have got this ancestor looking over your shoulders. Maybe you feel very optimistic that this is the year when I'm going to be able to break karmic ties. Maybe you're going to be able to make connections to spirits. Maybe it's something to do with kind of like a different religion or a different spiritual kind of like subjects that you would like to get into. Jupiter is the planet of luck. So your luck is coming from being in service to others, being somehow connected to hospitals, spiritual works, and so on. Maybe you're gonna love studying about any type of like metamorphoses or psychology or spirituality and you're gonna be spending a lot of time reading, for example. Maybe you become highly charitable. Maybe you feel like that you have got this calling to, in a way, sacrifice yourself to the greater good. Even it could indicate that you're gonna be thinking really, really deep. Maybe the negative side is that you not see any good in life. So this is the reason why there is a certain type of suffering there. And that suffer needs to be gone. That's going to be the reminder with Mars being there. Maybe there is an uncertainty whether to believe it's worth living. Some of you might decide to kind of give up, for example. Maybe you feel like that life is not necessarily supporting us. And Mars would like you to see that it's highly important that you support yourself. How you are going to be uplifting your mood. That's going to be such a big topic for you. From a karmic point of view, this is also an indication that we should not be denying our past either. We need to be able to face them, but also looking into the mirror and denying of any of the good things that happens to us, even if it's small, that needs to be celebrated. Yes, it can feel like that life is a struggle. It can feel like that there is nothing to look forward to. There is nothing to be grateful to or show gratitude towards. So therefore, you might decide that, okay, I'm gonna need drugs, I'm gonna need alcohol, I need pills, and all those type of stuff. The problem is that Jupiter is a great planet. Cancer, Jupiter loves being there, but it's exalted. And the exaltation is kind of like a mood swing here. And then when we start doing these overcompensations by drinking, alcohol, and all those type of things, what happens is that you feel like you can do whatever you want. You are like a wild horse roaming around. But when you are sober, it's sometimes very difficult to keep things together. So this could feel like that I'm crying all the time, and I don't even know why I'm crying. So melancholy. Or it could even talk to you about, as I said, depression, or it could talk to you about there are voices kind of like going on in your head. But a lot of mystical and spiritual awakening happening here. You become a lot more empathic. You might want to become a personal therapist, for example. You might become a lot more romantic, imaginative, or you want even to make feel other people feel special as well. It's also about going with the flow and not necessarily hiding your identity and your truth. Now, I want to talk about Mars in the 12th house as well, because obviously this is something that might sound really challenging. But on one hand, this Mars is a reminder that hiding our true feelings is just not helping us. Uh, Swallowing down an anger is not helping us. Or feeling guilty to be angry is not helping us either. You might not even know what you are angry about. You might be very driven actually to figure out what the purpose of life is. So this is also telling you, because Mars is a little bit of a researcher from the Scorpionic side point of view, that you are that like um, diving deep into the depth of your own mind. So, and then we do a subconscious sweep there. Maybe you have got an increased sexual desire. That's also very possible with this. Maybe there is a confusion about what I want, on who I want, for example. And maybe it can feel like there are these hidden forces that are attacking me. So, yes, it could talk to you about spiritual attacks as well. But it's definitely a difficulty to kind of open up due to your own fears. This is the reason why we tend to be repressing something with Mars being in the 12th house. It's about finding your inner passion. It's about turning anger into productivity. And yes, this could even indicate that you're going to have a strong desire to help others. So you can become kind of like this protector of the helpless, like rescuing people and so forth, fighting for those who are abused, abandoned. So this is the energy of extreme anger versus extreme compassion. Which side are you going with? Even some of you, unfortunately, will be experiencing some family feuds as well, though. But I'm going to come back on to that later. So this is the Mars and the Jupiter combination in your 12th house. Now, the other big shift that is happening to you is actually Saturn, Neptune, and Venus, triggering the sign of Aries in 2025 and 26 as well. And that is going to be your ninth house. So let's start with Neptune then. Even though we want to kind of read Saturn and Neptune together, but I'm going to be giving you a little bit of a breakdown and I'm going to kind of try to put them together for you. So Neptune is about being confused about what to believe, being confused about what I want to study, where I want to be traveling. But also there could be this a yearning here to relocate, to be somewhere else, to study something that is going to be kind of like becoming your new profession later on. This is definitely about an understanding of your physical, philosophical outlook on life. And then it's all about wanting or desiring to explore new and spiritual and intellectual and even physical horizons. So there is this need to expand your horizon with you, expand it, like expanding your experiences, expanding your mind as well through certain type of studies, travels, and so on. Now Saturn comes into the picture. And then Saturn is pretty much telling you here that it's all great to dream about, oh, I'm going to be living here, I'm going to be there, and all those type of things. But it also tells you that do not forget that we need to be real. We don't need to go overboard with this. And often there's the problem that we want so many things. We kind of think that the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. And Saturn says, it's the harsh reality planet. So it says, no, it's not that great there either. We saw that especially when EU came around, people started traveling around without any type of language knowledge, for example, thinking, oh, my life is going to be a lot better somewhere else. And then a lot of people actually left because they were not able to survive. Right? So with Neptune here, you might be focusing on publishing something. You might be focusing on your spiritual studies. Maybe you are trying to learn something new that feels kind of like karmic or kind of like a compulsory literature for you. But you can be experiencing some difficulties with travel as well. So not getting the visa and so forth. Maybe what you see is that there are people with certain type of belief system, and then I don't know which belief system I kind of resonate with. So if we want to be very productive with this, I recommend that you need to try to learn something. Choose a subject that is going to be building you up and it kind of like close to your heart desire. Learn a little bit more about the self as well on a metaphysical, spiritual, and physical and psychological level as well, so that you will be able to help others with this also. It also tells you that Saturn is the time of the father, or the father of the time, sorry, the other way around. So they give yourself the time. Don't be impatient when it comes to, for example, becoming an astrologer, because it doesn't take a day to become one. You're going to need a lot of consistency, determination to study, to practice, to have a break as well sometimes with Neptune, because that's the planet of escapism. Giving the break to your mind to rest, to recharge, to kind of experience other influences as well. And then after, we can go back on track with a fresh mind. Yeah, as I mentioned, some of you gonna go and visit new places. Some of you will relocate. Some of you will have kind of like an attitude of, okay, where is my heart leading me this time around? Closed eyes and then, pinning on the map and then, oh, yeah, that's my next destination and so forth. And then Saturn says, be a little bit cautious about this. So that's definitely something important with Saturn. Now, the other topic that we might want to talk to us or talk about in connection to Saturn, that it's not just about the mind and travel and so forth, but it does represent health situations of parents as well. So, because you've got this 12th house activation, the ninth house activation, it could even indicate that you are going to have to look after a parent of yours, for example. And with that 12th house activation, sometimes it's kind of like a little bit of a burden, a little bit like I'm in a prison. And this is the reason why I cannot go outside. And then the ninth house activation is kind of like yearning to be free, yearning to be somewhere else. But I've got all my obligations as well at the same time. Maybe you are a student of something already. And then this could be a period of time when you are questioning exactly what I'm studying, why I'm doing this. You can even start thinking about dropping out of school because it could feel like that this is not something that is truly matching my personality. Aries is pretty much kind of like, in a way, a personality. So that's why you might end up leaving your studies behind, and then you are going to be studying something else instead. So it really feels like that you can have this curiosity going on. The ninth house is quite fiery. Now we've got Aries there as well, which is quite fiery as well. So there is definitely a lot of adventure, a lot of uh, kind of like passion within you. And then Saturn is kind of like trying to work that through so that the fire doesn't burn out that easily. So it's going to be important that you have an intact faith, a hope, and the vision that you know that you are working towards. Yeah, I think I mentioned everything that we kind of need to know with this Saturn and Neptune combination. Now, the other exciting part is that we do have Venus, right? Sorry, there is something else I wanted to mention to you because we've got the ongoing Jupiter and Saturn square. So what happens here is that Jupiter is in your 12th house, increasing your sensitivity, increasing your hunger for knowledge. And then Saturn says, go step by step. We don't need to study all at once. Do not think for a minute that you're going to become, let's say, a better astrologer just by putting all your eggs in one basket or studying 24/7 and so on. While in a way, Saturn and Neptune combination really talks to you about publicity and then starting a YouTube channel potentially and so on. But Jupiter is still a reminder that there is so many other things to study. And then it can feel like that I'm an eternal student. And therefore, you might freeze with Saturn being there. So the recommendation here is that do not freeze down, basically. What is very important for you is that you are going, let's say you want to become an astrologer. That's a great topic, right? So that you test, you know, what type of clients I'm getting and so on. And in the meantime, I can still study because by doing readings and so forth, there's a lot of things coming up that you might be uncertain about. And this is the reason why you might choose to have one guru for yourself. And hopefully that's going to be me. There is definitely a lack of boundaries between you and, for example, reality and you as well. Or there is definitely this, because they're at the beginning of the squares, it is still happening in your eighth and the 11th house. So it can even feel like that there is lack of boundaries between you and your friends, or there is tension with your friends, for example. So it's a reminder that you need to be having limits with them, and they have to be respecting your own limits, right? But also, definitely, there is this need here to again work through challenges about stage fright. And Leo, you were born to be on a stage. You have to be seen. So maybe you are scared to death of opening that YouTube channel. And then if you are scared, guess what? We're going to have challenges with that Jupiter in the 12th and Saturn in the ninth house once it's moving forward, because then you're going to have to be dealing with this. Yeah, so I think that was important to kind of mention here. And then we've got Venus retrograde also happening in the sign of Aries. I made separate videos about all these constellations in depth. I think some of these videos altogether is at least 15 hours. So I highly recommend to kind of listen to all of them to have a better understanding. Here, I'm just trying to kind of give you an overview and certain type of topics that you might want to be actually focusing on. And you might believe that, oh, okay, Venus retrograde is only a couple of months, 40 days, so that's not that important. But actually, this is going to be more of a 25 January till 26 January period. And I explain in that video why that is. So while Venus is happening, or the retrogression is actually starting in your ninth house, finishing in the eighth house. So we've got, again, this overlap happening. This is all about the desire to experience experience different cultures, for example. It's the desire to learn a language, for example, or maybe even you've got a desire to do an international business. You might have got a desire to write, to speak, to publish, or maybe you are communicating quite a lot, and that communication is because you want to be expanding your horizon, and then you want to hear other people's opinion, or maybe this is going to be because of your career department. Venus is actually the ruler of your 10th house, of course, where there is still Uranus, right? This could even talk to you about that, yes, for example, a love of yours from the past is coming back to you. Potentially, this would be a foreigner, and also, it's a little bit of a playful energy. Both the ninth house and Venus are quite playful. So maybe you guys decide that we want to be traveling a lot more to foreign countries. Let's be a little bit more playful. Maybe you are going to be making money through education, spiritual matters, foreign businesses, and so forth. But it looks like there needs to be a lot of planning with that. While Venus is retrograde in your ninth house, it's going to be Saturn and Neptune are lingering around there. Jupiter is squaring it still. So it's kind of like tying the bits and bobs together. So it really looks like that you are still revisiting certain type of past materials as well. Maybe it's about connecting with international people, and then let's say that English, for example, is not your first language. And then you kind of feel judged by them. Oh, I don't understand you, and all those type of things. But it's the sign of Aries. So you're going to have to say no to them, and you're going to have to give a shit about it. There is a reminder with that as well. You might want to ask yourself if something like writing, teaching, or learning is something that I like. Do I want to finish it? Or maybe it's an interest that you had a passion for in the past and then it's coming back. Is there a location on Earth that you would like be at? Maybe you want to be returning because you felt really happy there. Is there any ways to make money through international matters? Maybe you used to go to church, or maybe you had already spiritual studies, and then maybe you did horse riding before. And then now that passion is kind of awakening again, and then you kind of go back to it. or at least you are thinking about going back to it. But Venus will be retrograde in your eighth house as well. And eighth house is other people's money and resources and inheritance. And in a way, it represents your marriage as well, or it represents your partner's money, loans and debts and any type of financial matters kind of belong here as well. So it looks like you're going to have to be reconnecting, for example, with some of your finances. So one way how I'm kind of thinking about it is that maybe you don't know what's your worth, and and therefore you want to be lowering your prices that it should be. So watch out for that. Maybe there is the need here to work through certain type of issues in your marriage. It might be connected to intimacy department, which we have spoken about in connection to Mars and Pluto as well. Maybe you are going to be considering of, okay, you know what, how I can pay my debts back quicker. Maybe this is also about, I mean, definitely it's a research about psychology, mystery. You do a lot of research, you tap into a lot of esoteric topics. It's all about the ancient wisdom. So it's pretty exciting. Some of the questions that you might want to be kind of like asking yourself, do I need in any ways to heal? Is there something at the back of my mind that is holding me back from earning money and to be in love? So we have to be re-exploring certain type of maybe romantic or financial um, attitude and patterns. And last but not, actually, we've got a couple of other things going on. Sorry, I thought I'm coming to the end, but no, because we also have got the nodes, which I kind of forgot to mention to you. So we've got the nodal changes also happening. And the changes are to Virgo as well as Pisces. Now, that's the second and eighth house axis in your chart. You see, Venus is talking to you about money, and the nodes are going to talk to you about money as well. So there is a huge focus on your financials, on your assets, on your income, on your debts, on your resources, as well as on your confidence level. It really feels like that you are going to try to make more money. But being out there is going to be very important with that. Yes, it could even indicate that you're going to be spending more money than you should. So there is a need here to kind of put a stop onto it. Saturn has been trying to teach you that, by the way, in your eighth house already. Also, this could indicate that unfortunately you don't have enough money to pay your bills. Maybe you have been focusing on the material values of your life quite a lot. You kind of are married to your money because that provides you certain type of security. What about your emotional safety? What about that self-doubt in earning money? That might be the root of your all your problems. And because the eclipses are always kind of emotional, they usually come with anxiety. Yes, this could be very much about motivation as well. Maybe some of you with Jupiter, for example, being in the 12th house next year, thinking about retirements. Maybe with these eclipses, you are thinking about, okay, how I can have my saving account so that I can kind of secure a safer future. And last but not least, even though I touched base on Uranus already by being in your 11th house, but let's talk about that as well a little bit more. One thing, sudden success in social media matters. This could even talk to you about that you are so excited about new goals and aspirations. Maybe those involve internet or involves any type of technological gadgets. You're going to be meeting interesting people. You are going to be maybe joining exciting groups. You are going to be part of a community. You're going to be attending probably workshops, seminars. You are going to be attending maybe certain type of spiritual retreats as well. Highly possible. It looks like you have got an active couple of years ahead of you. You might become very humanitarian with this as well. So I don't know, I'm going to be the leader of this certain type of community and I want to be an advocate for them. But fixed sign, sorry, succeeding house, there's a fixity coming with this. We might end up resisting the change. And we've got the Pluto and Uranus trine going on. That is really talking to us about that no resisting change, or it's going to backfire. Yes, it could talk to you about that friends are going to be walking out of your life. Maybe you become too rebellious. Maybe you allow kind of like friends or other people to lead your life, and therefore there is somehow you dropping your moral codes, or you question whether I should be in this industry or not. And it could bring certain type of fights as well, where I'm gonna give you an, like that sisterhood and brotherhood doesn't necessarily work anymore because they are not on the same wavelength with me. And remember, we've got the house of opinion also very active for you with Saturn and Neptune in the ninth house. So this is the Uranus in the 11th house that might be actually bringing you a major breakthrough in life and brings you the success, or you're going to have to work through it and not getting stuck in the mud. Well, dear Leo, I hope this year is the bestest ever for you. Good luck, happy Christmas, and if you would like to have a personal reading with me, go ahead on to check out my website right now. Take care. Bye-bye.